Hello, everyone out there in audio land. Welcome to another episode of Pints with Ayre. I'm Brent. I'm in charge of sales and marketing at Ayre. I have Ariel Brown to my left here, our chief engineer. And also with us just below is Ryan Berry, our CEO and expert technician. All right, so cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
What are in our pints this week?
We've got Oscar Blues, one of the longtime breweries started in Lyons, Colorado. Old Chub Scotch Ale, very tasty, a little bit stronger than the usual choice, but
Any old Scotch ale, it's going to have a little bit of backbone to it.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Nice. I'm going with the Oregon Standard, the Bowie
nice.
Cream Ale. Excellent summer beer. Highly recommend it. Love the old school label, as we talked about before.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, they're a great brewing company. They make a few different beers, but they're all really great standards. So something you can enjoy in this hot weather.
Getting hotter, unfortunately.
All right, and even though it's a Scotch ale, that's made in America, right? And that's our topic for today. Made in America. What's that mean? What are the different variations of it? Why is it important to us? You know, like you can say made in America. A lot of people use that as a marketing term. It's the same thing, made in Germany, you know, made in England, whatever. There's certain countries have kind of a prestige, and, you know, there's also, you know, certain countries that don't necessarily, you know, like you see something that maybe is made in Indonesia or Sri Lanka or whatever, and you might go, oh, I don't know what the quality is like on that, you know. And it's not that those countries don't make good products, but you know, sometimes when you're going for the cheapest possible labor, you know, wherever you're at, you're going to get poor craftsmanship. So we make everything in terms of our products in Colorado, you know, in our factory, but we have parts that come from overseas. We have sub-assemblies that are made at other places within Colorado, in, you know, other parts that come from California. So, you know, Ryan, do you want to start us off and just kind of talk about what, you know, made in America kind of means to us in terms of a company?
Yeah, well, made in America is a tricky term, as you kind of already outlined, because, you know, the reality is the world is a global community today. And there are certain parts that you can't get in America. For example, there's many of the transistors that we have made for us that are just, the machinery is just not here anymore. And these are, you know, based on company decisions that were much larger than Ayre. And, you know, they made them back in the 80s and into the 90s, and, you know, moved a lot of things overseas that were, you know, originally made here. And then some of the parts were actually started, you know, the companies were started overseas. So, you know, Charlie had once talked about the made in America term and how much he hated it because, you know, technically there's very few things made in America unless you cut down the tree here and make a pencil out of it here with some lead that was mined here. The pencil's not made in America. It's sourced from all over the place. And that's
right.
Most any product really. So, you know, we definitely do assembly in America. And in parts that we can get here, we always try to source here in the United States if we can. And it's not a comment on what we feel other people can make in other countries, you know, other countries' quality control or anything to that nature, but it's more of a opportunity for us to be closer to the companies. So if there's quality control issues, it's easier for us to go there and visit them. Environmental standards we know are being followed here in the United States, you know, just with how much more strict the EPA is here than, you know, in some other countries. And so, you know, we have a lot better control in that. And the environment's a really important thing for Ayre. As you know, we recycle vast amounts of all the materials we use and try to get uses multiple times out of everything, just to, you know, minimize our impact on the environment. So when you talk made in America, you know, our chassis are made here. The transformers, as you stated, are made here. We have parts made from California all the way to North Carolina. So all across the United States, assembly is done here, board materials all sourced here. So anytime we can do it, we do, and for the reasons that I stated. And it can cost a little extra, and then, it can, be a little bit more growing pain, because a lot of these companies we work with are like us. They're smaller companies. They're not huge mega corporations that churn out thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces in a day, but they're the type of company we like to do business with, because they're small businesses that appreciate the need for quality, appreciate the business that they have, and it just makes a good marriage between us and those companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, small businesses and supporting other companies, like you said, the proximity is really nice, especially when we can get things sourced in Colorado. It's a drive away if we need those parts, or if we need to help somebody with a QC issue or whatever it is.
Exactly.
It's interesting too, I think, from your perspective, probably, Ariel, just as in the design, because we can't find everything in the US. We look for US parts first, but from a part search, or when you're looking for something, I remember specifically with the KXR searching for a range of resistors that met the needs of the volume control. There really wasn't anything available until you guys found those Vishay resistors that are only made in Israel.
Yeah, I think the manufacturing was moved to Israel. I think originally they may have been made in Germany, but I think they have several manufacturing plants. I think the one that was the manufacturing line to make that specific resistor actually got moved to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like when we make that kind of decision, we look at the company that we're working with overall, and we want to make sure that we're working with a reputable company. And so even if it's not made right here in the US, we still try to uphold standards for those parts that we do choose.
Sure.
Companies. And anytime we do source something overseas that we just can't get here, it is a big interview process for us. We have to look at the environmental controls they have in place, make sure that they're disposing of waste properly.
Right.
They're doing their part to try to minimize their impact on the planet, because sure, it's high-end audio and it uses electricity and it's a luxury, so to speak, but at the same time, there's no reason not to try to make sure everybody's responsible.
Yeah, absolutely. And some countries are better than others, right? Germany obviously is top notch there. I know Korea is pretty high on the list there. Especially countries that are smaller that don't have the luxury of just tossing the waste out into the far backyard,
Sure.
by the fence someplace. So those countries definitely have good standards, and we get things from a lot of countries, right? We get some good parts from Japan, Israel, like we talked about before, Korea, we've gotten stuff from before, but I imagine there's also parts like circuit boards, even if they're a US company, may be made in Taiwan or some other places too. So there's that whole trace as you go, like even if it's we're buying from a US brand, a US company, a circuit board material or something like that, that may be built someplace else, and you can
Right.
trace back through that, but you don't always know up front unless you ask the questions.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's things even like like capacitors, where we might get it might be a US made capacitor, but again, the ingredients of that capacitor, the actual dielectric film, is quite likely not made in the US.
Right.
And
Right.
even that source can change. Even that product, some of those sources dry up, and so those companies have to find different sources from other countries. And so
It's a lot of communication and a lot of constant work, but
Yeah.
it's what we have to do to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I want to touch on, is again trying to keep we try and keep a lot of processes as local as possible. And so even our bare boards are made. We have a couple companies we use, but each of them are only a few miles away from us here.
Yep.
So it allows us a very personal relationship with them, allows quality control issues to be dealt with in person immediately. It reduces on even shipping needs, because so one of us can drop by on our way to work. We don't have to rely on shipping, so it reduces impact there. A lot of our circuit board assembly is all done, again, very, very local, a few miles away from us. Again, quality control issues all those issues, as well as having a much lighter impact.
Right.
In the world.
And I know there's a pretty strict standard, you know, if you actually go by the letter of the law, which, you know, not just Naudio, but I think there are other big companies that may not, where there's a pretty high percentage of your product has to be made in the US, come from the US, and it's based on value. I believe it was you know, what percentage of the value of the parts came from within the US, and it's not 100%. So you could have something that actually says made in the USA that follows all the rules and still has, you know, 5 or 10% of the value of the parts coming from anywhere else. It's you know, it's a kind of like organic, you know, there's a certain standard to that, and there are, you know, loopholes and ways to get around it.
And then, you know, you get into verbiage too. You know, there'll be people that, you know, assembled in the USA. Well,
right.
that can be a lot of things. You could have literally everything done overseas, and then when it gets there, you put the final screws in, and it's assembled in the USA.
Exactly.
It can be tricky.
Yeah, and we went through this when we did our box artwork, you know, a number of years ago. It's like, what should we actually say on there? Like, what's the most meaningful? And hand built in Colorado seemed to be the best statement, because we do have actual people that build each component that goes out, you know, and we get the parts from the best sources we possibly can, most of the time in the US, but not always. Like you said, there's stuff that we can't get here.
Yeah, it seems to be the most honest way to say it, you know, because it is hand built in the USA. Yeah, we could probably look into things, and if you went component by component, you'd probably find that the pieces that we source overseas are irreplaceable here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So you could qualify under that made in the USA thing, but even then, it just didn't feel right to say made in the USA using components that do come from other sources. So, you know, it's more important, you know, for us, not so much as the marketing tool of it, but the, you know, just acknowledging that we do try to source everything here that we can.
Right. And I think most people who are looking at our products are interested in the fact that we do choose high quality partners and high quality parts, because the stuff's made to last a lifetime, right? So we're trying to find the stuff that, you know, is going to give us great longevity and performance, you know, regardless of where that ends up coming from, as long as it's a good partner company, like you mentioned before.
And, you know, that's not to say that, you know, just getting things from America is immediately everything's going to be 100% perfect. As you can see behind me, I'm currently inspecting every faceplate that came in from the machine shop that's across the street from us. So, you know, it's there's always a process to make sure everything's just right.
Yeah, I mean, the quality control aspect of having parts that are made close to us that we can work to be better and better with the manufacturer on is super important when you order small quantities like we do. And that's one of the things where we always get stuck with, because we can't order tens of thousands of pieces at a time, right? Like,
Sure.
you know, we're ordering hundreds of pieces at a time, and if we have a 10% fallout, that's significant. You know, that's a significant amount to us, and to be able to just drive them back someplace and say, hey, these didn't work because of this piece right here and this spot that you see on the faceplate here. And they can really, not just, you know, the management or the person who's our sales rep, but the actual people who make it can look at it with us and go, oh, yeah, that's caused because of how we hung it this way. And I think if I change it and hang it this way, like, it'll be much better. And, you know, being able to collaborate with them on the quality control is huge.
Yeah, it's valuable for both of us. I mean, to make sure that our parts are what we expect them to be, and that the end user is getting something that we're proud of and that we would own ourselves.
Right.
And it also, you know, helps the company that we're working with understand what our standards are, why something isn't quite right, and what they can do. And, you know, then they can start brainstorming on how to fix that thing, that problem. So that way, you don't run into batch after batch after batch.
Yeah, you're not just repeating
frustration from both companies, and you can kind of collaborate to make sure that you're on point.
Yeah, great. All right, well, wonderful. Hand built in Boulder, Colorado. I guess you can say that about your beer. I can say this one was hand built in Oregon. So
still a US.
All right. Okay, great. Another episode of Pints with Ayre. Thanks everyone out there for watching. Hope you're all well. And until the next time, cheers.
Cheers.